That'll probably be great.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Performance Achievement. My name is Mary Went, and I have three quick things to share, and then I'm going to toss it to Allie, who is our leader and our amazing team. Here's the very first thing. We're not going to be perfect. We are absolutely not going to be perfect. We are all volunteers. This is not a big production. We are all on Zoom. So, yes, there may be glitches, there may be buffering issues, and there may be some problems with sound. But here's the good news. We learned from last year. So, go to the resource page. We will have links per caption of every routine or video that you're seeing. Go there. But to be honest with you, we want you to do that anyway, because we would like you to go ahead and practice judging and reinforce the concepts that we are talking about today. So if there is an issue, we're going to power through. And we may even talk over each other. And that's okay too, because this is a dialogue and not a monologue. Second thing is every person in front of you is a volunteer, as I said, but they also had a blank sheet in front of them, and they were tasked with define performance achievement and not only list what it is for Texas dance educators by Texas dance educators, but also define it. It's bigger to say what is projection. We can all write it, but it's bigger to have to elaborate on it and then walk it in to come up with a number. So this team had a lot of challenges, and that's what you're hearing today. And that's why they're here donating again their hundreds of hours of time. So I want to publicly affirm and acknowledge how amazing all of these people are. Final thing, the videos that you're seeing, dance educators from outside of Texas have graciously allowed us to assess their pep rally routines they learned on a Tuesday and performed on a Friday, and have a knowing that we are going to chop them up and dice them. But we want to publicly say thank you for allowing us to be better and being vulnerable with sharing your team and your name. And we know that you are all amazing dance educators, and that this is not the breadth of your work. So with that, I'm going to toss it on to Allie and this amazing group. Allie, all yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mary. And I apologize. My bell went off earlier. We are all educators, as Mary mentioned, and we are at school today. So I apologize if you hear my bell again during this, or if a student appears. We also have another committee member in the waiting room. So I'm going to let her hop in and let her know that we're recording, um, and then we'll get to it. So, Mary Beth, welcome. Just FYI, we are already recording. We're just about to get started, so we're so happy for you to join us. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see, everybody, were we good? We can see. Okay, so like Mary said, this is the performance achievement segment of your score sheet. Typically, tends to be at the bottom of the sheet, but it doesn't mean that it's less important in any way, shape, or form. And we're going to kind of break it down today.
You guys, it's AC Acosta. And I heard that you wanted to know what overall impression means to me. Well, here it goes. I think that overall impression is one of the most important captions because it encapsulates all captions in one. I think that a good performance is a performance that moves you, whether that makes you feel all the joy, whether it's empathy for the performers or what the story that they're trying to tell, or whether that leaves you in such awe of their flawless technique. A good performance should embody all of those things and should make you feel some type of emotion from it. Once they leave the floor, that feeling should remain. So overall impression to me is something that leaves you with much more than just the performance itself. Leaves you with a little bit more to think about, a little food for thought, and just everything else. I hope that was helpful, and I hope to see you guys later.
Hey y'all, and talking about performance achievement from my perspective, when we are in football season, it's have we gotten better and improved from football game number 1 to football game number 3? Or in all of the elements that obviously that we're looking for, but also is the audience involved. Are they feeling what I want them to feel Are the team members feeling like they are giving their 100% and they're walking off the floor feeling like they've accomplished exactly what they set out to do? To us, that is what performance achievement is.
All right, we're here to talk about overall performance impression. And to me, your overall performance impression, it's such an easy way to rack up points on your score sheet if you're doing it correctly. And it's also a great way to lose points if you're not doing it correctly. So it's a very important part of your score sheet. And to me, I want to see consistency. Consistency from all of our performers, every single person on the floor, projecting the same amount of energy, giving the same amount of energy, having the same amount of stamina from the beginning of the dance all the way to the end of the dance, not just having the front half that is given the show and the life on the face, but even the tiny little girl in the very back corner, even she is projecting, lifting, emoting out to the audience. And it is powerful and strong from beginning to end. So that level of your energy, it doesn't ever drop throughout. And that's performance impression.
To me, overall impression is what I take away from the routine. So, in essence, how it makes me feel when the dancers are done, what I take away from that as a judge or a spectator. And we might see a routine that is very impressive in terms of a lot of technical skills and a lot of ability on the floor, but falls flat. And we might see something that just really invokes a lot of emotion and feelings in us that isn't technically the hardest routine. So it's how those pieces can come together in positive and negative ways and give us that overall feeling when the routine is over, what the dancers leave with us when they leave the floor.
What overall impression means to me is when you look at a performance and what is the overall feeling or impression you get from that performance after seeing it.
When measuring performance impression during the adjudication process, one should consider the following metrics. 1, did the performance communicate and convey the concept of the piece? 2, did the dancers commit to the style of the performance? 3, was the performance energetic and dynamically presented? 4, did the performance connect with you and or the audience? 5, did the performance leave you and or the audience wanting more? 6, did the dancers perform with genuine expression and or evoke emotion throughout the performance? And finally, was the performance music, choreography, and costuming cohesive and appropriate?
To me, overall impression is the judge's last thoughts and feelings about a piece, whether it's a football performance or a contest piece. It's their last thoughts on it that can give you that score. What your audience and judges are taking away from your performance. So whether it's a football routine and you wanted to make them feel happy and it was just a fun and happy piece, or if it's a contest piece where you want to make them feel motivated or sad, they're able to give you that overall impression that you left them with. So even if a routine isn't, I guess, technically perfect, but that overall impression of what you left your audience and judges feeling is what performance achievement and overall impression means to me.
When I hear overall impression, what that means to me is, what am I left feeling? What stuck with me? Am I thinking about the choreography, the technique, the costuming? What kind of things did you do to give me a good overall impression?
All right. So through that, you heard a lot of different words, a lot of different concepts. So if the committee wants to kind of chime in, just a little bit of discussion, those of you following along at home, I suggest that maybe you journal some words that stood out to you. So those of you on the Zoom call, if anyone wants to unmute, like what stood out to you that those people were talking about? Or what did you hear the most?
I'll start off, Allie. I definitely heard full package. I heard that quite a bit consistently. So I'm going to toss it now to another committee member.
Awesome.
For me, what stuck out was just getting everyone at the same level. And that's something I know as a director we can struggle with. That front group might be rocking it, but we want to make sure that those side groups have that same energy as that center group.
For sure. Awesome. So it's a lot of like full package. I heard full package in terms of like the things we're looking at. I also heard full package in terms of every dancer, and I heard full package in terms of duration. So we're going to kind of break that down and look at what all of that means. So again, we've got an awesome team that we'll be sharing with you today. And we're going to kind of break down each piece of the rubric that falls within performance achievement. So it might look like a list, like 2 captions and a list of a lot of things, but really how we look at it is we have our top 4 items up here: the venue appropriate presence, projection, dynamics and quality of movement, and endurance. And we look at those as 4 indicators under performance achievement. And our 5th indicator is the performance as a whole. And that integrates the following list: the integration and utilization of production elements, costumes and props, presentation and design, visual interest, and the ensemble effort. So the group effort of bringing it all together. So I won't talk too much on this slide because the whole presentation will be breaking this down, but we'll get a glimpse of how we're going to break that down. And I'm going to send it off first to Miss Sydney to talk about the venue appropriate presence.
Okay. Thanks so much, Allie. Like she said, my name is Sydney Estill, and I'm going to talk about venue appropriate presence. And so, obviously, when we're looking specifically at these processes, you've got your fall football season scenario and then potentially your contest scenario. And so we know as directors, those venues can look different, but the things still apply to the whole. So I just want to kind of reread this definition that's here. For venue appropriate presence, that means that all dancers incorporate exceptional uplifted carriage of the head and torso that communicates confidence throughout the entire routine. So that's one of those full package words. And then they perform with exceptional clarity and placement of body lines, utilize appropriately energized movements that can be seen. And this says by football patrons, but by any patrons on any part of the arena or the field or area or anywhere, that can be seen by all of those people. So all of the humans doing all of the things with their bodies so that all of the people can see them. So a lot of those full package deals. And then Allie, if you want to go to the next slide. Okay, and so when we think of a stellar performance in terms of presence, these are the things we've listed, some of the things that we're looking for. So uplifted carriage, confidence for the whole routine, clarity of placement and lines, those cleaning factors, big energy through the front and back body, big energy through the entire formation, all of those things. And so with that stuff in mind, and ideally you can pull from the resources, those rubrics, so you have it in front of you. While we talk through this, we're going to watch a sample video in just a second, and you're going to consider some of those buzzwords on your own. And so I'm asking you here to kind of pay attention to both the presentation skills we're expecting them to exhibit, the group execution of those skills. So is it that all or some? And then if they're able to maintain all of these things throughout the entire routine. So kind of this first part of this discussion is just the actions that we're looking for. So what am I actually seeing? Is there uplifted carriage? And then maybe you can jot some of those things down kind of as you're watching. So I'm going to stop talking so that you can watch and focus for just a second. And we're good, Allie.
So we're not able to hear the music, but as always, know to go to that resource page.
Yeah, you can still see.
That's because I'm muted and it's playing from my computer. I'm so sorry. Let me try that again. As Mary said. Here we go.
Still have the challenge of the music, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and keep going. We are educators. We know how this goes. Go back to that resource page afterwards.
Yeah, and Allie, I think that's probably okay. So if you want to go back to the slides, and I think we can go, I think maybe the video is on slide 9 itself. So we can either go to that one or go after. But so hopefully you saw or can go back and see if again and a few of the things or the actions that we're asking you to look for. So again, energy, uplifted carriage, is it the all or the sum? And so now we're going to get into the actual, this one right here, verbiage and descriptors that we're going to try to use in our verbal critiques for whatever score that you could potentially be giving down the road. And so I'm a former English teacher. I love the language and think that that's so important. And as directors, we like to hear the actual words of how the things are being executed as well. So as we're watching the performance, we're already doing this, a stream of descriptive vocabulary, not just the thing, but how it's happening is running through our head, kind of helping us make these scoring or category distinctions. And then we want to make sure that we're providing that information to our directors and performers so that they match ultimately the score that they're being given. And so again, we're going to dive some more into the language specifically, and what kinds of words and phrases we might use to describe the scores that we give. And so I'm assuming that this list is probably part of that resource page as well. These are actually, this is an adapted list. You can kind of see that from the bottom from our fine arts UIL counterpart. So this is going to be something that, especially for administrators, and if we're trying to talk about this, at the campus or district level, this is going to be really helpful to have in our back pocket and in our director's back pocket. And so then, Allie, are we already on slide 10? Sorry. Is this 10? I can't see the numbers, so I just have my notes marked.
You're great.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Sorry, pregnancy brain has me. I gotta have my notes or I'm not gonna remember anything I'm supposed to say. And so anyway, as we continue, now we're thinking less of just what we're looking at, but again, how those things are being executed. And so again, the next step is going to be to consider the verbiage and the phrasing. We're not going to do this right now, but I would encourage you kind of in your own time to go back and look at maybe this video or any of the other videos, and kind of rewatch and actually practice the what and the how using these words. And then we're also going to discuss some actual sentence stems and phrasing of how we can use these, on a talk tape or as we're taking notes. And so this is where, again, we really get into the bones of the phrasing and the critiques and comments. And I just want to kind of make an aside here that we're working to emphasize that what you say really, really matters in terms of how that sheet comes out. And so I kind of mentioned this before, but we know as directors, it is really frustrating to get a really awesome talk tape talking about how cute your costumes are and how great everything is. And then you get the score sheet and those things don't match and you're confused and you can't really explain that to your kids. You don't really know how to get better. So we're trying to avoid all of that kind of ambiguity and confusion. So kind of in looking at this red box, this is when we're gonna open it up to this panel, but talk about a few of the ways that you can actually say those things. So again, we're describing the how of what we're seeing. And so kind of just some to kick it off, before I open it up, some examples that I would give and something that we discussed in preparing for this was, when we're scoring on that distinguished or accomplished level, those are kind of good places to maybe just provide the feedback versus when we get into proficiency, developing, improvement needed, we may need to start working on maybe how we can help them accomplish some of those things. So you're going to hear me kind of talk through some of the distinctions of that. But just an example for if we were going to say this is a distinguished level performance, some of those descriptor words from that list we looked at were effortlessly, outstanding, exceptional. And so I might say something like, This group has outstanding body placement and energy that radiates throughout the stadium. So I'm very clear in saying the level that they're at. I've clarified what I'm seeing. I've used some of that phrasing of what were we saying? Full picture or complete package, full package, talking about radiating throughout the stadium. That level kind of beneath that, accomplished, some of those descriptors are clearly, frequently, mostly, so not necessarily 100%, but pretty dang close. And so I might say something like, this group is mostly lifted and performing for all audience members. So we're not quite there, but it's getting better. And as an adjudicator, you can look at that and say, okay, you have the tools currently to do these things well. And so again, like I mentioned, these are obviously considered more of the higher ranking scoring level. And while we understand, especially as directors and coaches, growth is always possible, we want to maybe focus a little bit more on growth phrases and these sentence stems that we're about to discuss for that proficient, developing, and improvement needed scoring levels. And so for these, what we're going to talk through is not just how to say what you're seeing, but how we can appropriately and kindly maybe make suggestions for things that they could consider. And so I just want to say here, this is not, one of those things where it's like, you should put a technical skill that you may not be able to do, and I don't know your life, so I don't know that about you, right? But this is going to be more of, you did this all in unison and held for an 8 count. I don't know. Maybe you could consider visually a contagion or something like that. And I'm going to open it up because I'm sure that they will have better examples than me. But so we're just going to start with the proficient level. And so you can look at some of those phrases that Allie has on the screen. Commonly, generally, intermittent, or occasional. So some of us are sometimes doing X, whatever it is. And so if we're thinking about how we can help them grow in this area, and this is where I'm going to open it up for some suggestions, but we could start with a stem of, you might consider blank, or you might try blank. And then this is where I'm going to ask my friends on the Zoom to unmute if they have any ideas or other ways to phrase some of those things.
Great prompt, Sydney. And let's all stay exactly in this projection or in the carriage indicator as we go to give some examples.
My example that I was looking at is more in the developing, but I can try to adjust to proficient. But the words that stood out to me for proficient was pleasing. I feel like a lot of times you want to tell them like you're doing it, but just like not enough. So I find myself often telling them like, everyone has a pleasant smile, but I want to see an even more outstanding presence from everyone. So really think about lifting and going over the top. So like telling them it's pleasant, but it really could be more. Or thinking about projection, it's so much more than the actual facial expression. So if they're developing, maybe talking about the overall performance quality is kind of unclear. If you could really think about polishing up your shoulder placements and your focuses so that everyone's projecting the same direction, I think it would have a bigger impact. So you're telling them something that they can tangibly go do, clean up their shoulder and head placements and see if you get a better impact.
Yes, and I love that, Allie, because we said, this is what I see right now. And then this is how I recommend maybe that you try fixing it. And so it's not just the fix, and they can have a clear understanding of, what did she see? Like, where do I need to rotate my shoulders, or what is that happening, or what is that is happening? And so I'm going to keep moving for the sake of time.
Oh, wait, Holly has something I can tell.
Oh, sorry. Go, Holly.
I was just going to say something on the proficient category or like list that I have found. I notice with my team, or also what I'm judging, is intermittent. So the dancers, there's a level of understanding there, but that that presence, that body carriage, whatever they may be executing, it kind of comes in, it like comes and goes. So it's there, but then maybe we're not thinking about the duration the whole time. So I do find myself using that word when I'm judging intermittent, and like, I can see it, I see this. Let's keep that going and be consistent as we travel through our transitions or whatever it may be. But that's something that just this past season I've found myself saying on a more regular, or just saying kind of not over and over, but just more often in the proficient category. I think it's the consistency piece from all dancers, the duration of the time with those things.
Yeah, Holly, and I also appreciate it. I mean, this was just the example that you gave, but like through the transition. So again, continuing to name the actual things that you're seeing, especially if we're talking about intermittent energy. If they don't know that it was really good in the beginning, they don't, then they don't know that it wasn't great on the transition or at the end or wherever that is. So I think just, again, and it's hard, right? Because it's a lot of words to try to describe what we're seeing at the same time in a short amount of time, but we're all doing this every day. And so hopefully with practice, it just gets a little bit easier. So unless anybody else, and I can't see everybody with the shared screen. So if anybody has anything and wants to unmute really quick, if not, I'm going to try to close up so I can pass it.
I'd like to share.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is Miranda Richter. I can hear Angela Hayes' voice in the back of my head, because she's really good at pointing out when she does see things happen well. She'll say, "Oh, like you've had this delightful carriage. I see it when you hit that triangle formation." And then I could see like utilizing Holly's words of say, please continue. I'm only seeing it intermittently. Please continue it throughout the next formation change. But I think it is important to highlight where you do see the positive, so that they know that they are working towards that outstanding column.
Absolutely. I'm going to give it like 3 seconds. Okay. And then, so again, ideally, like you would go back and kind of, if you're like me, you like printed copies, and you'd have your little printed rubric and your list of descriptors and maybe some of the stems, kind of thinking through some of those things that we discussed. And you'd go back and revisit that video to think through, what am I seeing? How am I seeing it? Where can I give, credit where credit is due? Where can I use those sentence stems for growth and improvement? And then, yeah, I think that's it for me. Thank you so much. Hopefully, it was clear enough that you are able to kind of take that and work with it. And now I'm going to pass it to Holly for projection.
Thank you, Sydney. I'm Holly Lyons, and I'm also a current director in the Austin area, and I've been working with this wonderful committee and developing this portion, a portion of the score sheet. Something I just think, before I kind of dive into the projection, I found that even as a director, like going through this process and with these women and developing kind of the language and the thought process and giving the hows behind maybe the critiques and how to grow, that's just helped me a lot as a director in general with my team and in every getting ready for any performance. And I think that I'm glad that we're doing this. I think it's really beneficial, and it can benefit even outside of the actual assessment, just your overall growth as a team. So I am talking to you about projection indicator under this caption. And so I'm also going to read you this definition. It's probably the only thing I'm going to read to you. But projection is defined as authentic and dynamic emotions that's communicated through facial expression and body language. And I think sometimes with projection, at least I'm speaking for myself maybe on this, but we tend to think that projection's just about your face, and it's a lot about your face, but it's also about your body language, and not just what Sydney was talking about, like on your carriage, but communicating and putting forth that energy and effort through the body language to communicate not only with your face, but also with your full body while you're performing, from all dancers throughout the whole performance. So if we go ahead and move on to the next slide, I have a few questions I want you to think about, and I'm going to throw these out to the committee. So anyone chime in on the first question. It's just really like, with the definition that I just talked about, with that in mind, what do you think of when you think of authentic projection? Like, what comes to mind? What is that? What does that mean to you? And I would love anyone's thoughts and comments on that.
I think one thing that shows authenticity is that it kind of like changes. It's not a plastered, frozen expression, but there's like variety and dynamics throughout the piece.
Yes, exactly. I agree with that as well.
And to build on that, I would like to see the expression change as the music changes, because I think that that can also help tell the story and just be more authentic as opposed to just a plastered expression the whole time.
Yeah, those are great. I'm right there with you guys. That's what I think of as well. I'm going to move to the next question. So what creates that authenticity within the facial expression? So we've talked about changing it up, changing with music, but what creates that authenticity?
I'm going to come right in hot on this. What I love is, especially if it's like a piece that has like maybe a Spanish flair, or has that moment when I feel that it is so authentically reflecting the music. Maybe the eyebrows go up. I mean, it's not scripted, but it's just the joy, or even like maybe even more of a leaning forward in that moment, or just a little more of some energy to the face. And so again, that word authentic and just joy that comes across.
I'm going to piggyback on what Mary said. I think it's about like a genuine connection that the dancers have to the music as well. So it might look different from dancer to dancer, but you can tell that there's that buy-in, and you can tell that they are actively engaged and they enjoy what they're doing.
I was going to say that, like, to create it, it's that you're trying to actually get that out of them and get them as the dancer to feel it. So if it's like a happy, cheerful pep rally or whatever spirited dance, that they're having fun when doing it, or that there's those little moments when they connect with each other within the piece, they're so nice. Yeah, getting the dancer themselves to feel it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Some things that I wrote down was using eye contact and expression, using full facial muscles, and outward expression of what's inside. So exactly what kind of we've all hit on already. And then my last question is, what creates dynamic expression? We've talked about changing. So what are some examples of dynamic expression? So what creates it, and what are some examples? Which I think we've maybe touched on it a little bit already. For me, I'm going to kick it off, and then you guys can like piggyback on it or expand from there. Again, I think it's using your full facial muscles. I think it's changing your expression, having that variety, using some more animation in the face versus just like, two different smiles. Like, what are some other things that you can do that also appropriately fits your performance? And then anytime you have a character or a role, or like Mary mentioned the Spanish flair, like communicating that character and what that role is. And again, we've already talked about just genuinely feeling the music and knowing the message of both the lyrics and also the performance and what the goal is there. Any other thoughts?
You had mentioned like body language a little bit, and that it's in the body as well. So thinking about like, for a dance, like a football field, you're trying to exhibit pride. So you're lifted and pulled back, versus like a contemporary dance might have more of a natural posture or a contracted posture that exhibits sadness.
Yeah, I love that, especially on the football field with football field style routines. That's obviously going to look different than your stage and basketball and competition routines. So absolutely. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. So again, we have a clip for you to see, and we may be missing some audio. I want you to really hone in. They're cute, small group. They're great, but I really want you to focus in on their body energy and their facial energy and expression. And so this is the latter half of this particular piece. And I think they're moving to their ending position here in just a second. But just, again, we're looking at the energy, looking at the performance, the projection, facial qualities. And I think we're probably good with that. I think they're about to hit their ending pose. And there it is. Yeah, good job, you guys. Okay, so with that clip in mind, so what are some words and phrases? Here's our adjudication descriptors again. What are some words and phrases that maybe you would use during, use to reflect appropriate scoring for the projection indicator? You want to remember that distinguished is all for the duration, accomplished is majority, proficient is some, developing is few. So with that in mind, and as a judge, that's something that I feel like just because it's a newer approach that we really have to, I have to go back and really make sure I'm like, okay, I'm thinking about all, majority, some, few, and then like go from there versus maybe what I think, what number that performance might reflect. It's really not about that at all in this system. So when I look at that clip as a judge, I think that it probably falls for me into the majority some. It's a smaller group. We definitely had, some dancers killing it with their face and energy, but it wasn't all for the duration. So to keep that in mind. Any thoughts from the committee on maybe some words that you would use to describe their body energy and facial projection?
I'll jump in. So Angela Hayes here, and I saw there were some things that I would definitely utilize the word. There's some indistinctive facial expressions. There's some inconsistency. But one of the things as I like to do is I like to be sure I can highlight them. When they were towards the end of the clip, I would definitely denote that how they got from their big cheesy smiles to they kind of got their sassy smile. I can imagine myself in a live critique reacting to that little bit of an emotional expression change towards the end. I would give them lots of feedback about things that they could do to make things more satisfactory. I would give them that, but while telling them the things that I need to work on, I would make sure that we pointed out that just that little bit of energy change at the end where they're doing their sassy walk. I would highlight them, but I would also give them some things that I would work on, and that their facial expressions were sometimes unclear, and there was an energy level that was infrequent, right, from performer to performer. So those are some of the ways that I would interact with those Destin Sharks.
Thank you. Any other thoughts, comments?
I kind of want to talk about, because I think we spoke on eye contact, I noticed some inconsistent head cleans, and I really think that if they wanted to clean it up to a more sophisticated and delightful routine, just going through those focuses would really enhance their performance achievement, because that's when they're looking at their judge, especially towards the end. So I think that would be something I would comment on.
Totally agree with that. Yes. Anyone else? Same thing. I can't see everyone, so just jump in if you have something. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Nope, sorry. I would just say that in talking about like motivation and where does the things come from, and I know we couldn't hear the music, and Angela kind of talked about it going from one section to the sassy walk. I'm imagining that the music probably changed slightly right there. And so just thinking about like what part of the story are we telling in each section as a recommendation, considering what is the purpose of this section, and what should my body language and my facial expression be saying about this specific part of this versus the sassy face, sassy walk part of this.
Well, and I love, sorry, that you mentioned the body again, because it's like, if you're going to have that drastic of a facial change, there should probably be a shift in the choreography or the overall movement quality as well. So you can comment on like how it all ties together, or if it needs to all tie together.
Yeah, I think those are all great points. I think as a director, if that's my team and I'm in rehearsal, we're not in a assessment situation, if I'm in a rehearsal, I think to maybe continue to motivate or to encourage and to maybe push a little bit, I would definitely pick out the dancer who was dancing the biggest with the biggest energy, maybe with the qualities that I'm looking for, or that I want everyone, all dancers, to demonstrate. So in rehearsal as a director, I would maybe point out that girl that has those qualities. I'd have her demo for everyone else in front of them so everyone can see what that looks like. And then rep the full group, break it down, work on those performance, the projection aspect. And then I would give some individual corrections after that. And I like to use terms like turn up the volume, more animation right here in this section with your face, talk about body energy, how to engage the muscles to create that body energy. We talked about the carriage and alignment a minute ago. We talked about kind of polishing up those shoulders or being more specific with that because it will enhance that piece of it. So along those same lines, I also think it just flew out of my head. I also think that when, as a director and you're working through this and you're really practicing and setting that projection portion of your dance, I like the idea of grouping it, section up your dance. So each section, either give it a name for your projection, or we've done, with my team, we've done level 1, level 2, level 3, level 1, like depending on what it is. So while they're dancing in rehearsal, I'm like level 2, they all understand what that means and they can kind of push in that way. So as a director, that's what I would do to help coach and help my performers grow with that projection piece in mind. Okay. Next slide. So this is really just, if you go back one, this is probably the one that I should have been on the last 2 minutes, but it's really just kind of a wrap up with the projection. And just a reminder that projection is 1/5 of the indicator, of the performance achievement indicator. And I think that sometimes when we think of that indicator, projection is really what we are maybe more focused on there. So just to remember that it's only 1/5 of that piece of that indicator, and to just, I think that's all I have. I think to just really make sure that we're thinking about all and the duration of the time, or how we can coach our students for that goal and to grow in that way. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Samandra with dynamics and quality of movement.
Thank you, Holly. So Holly really did a great job in talking about the dynamics and energy in a dancer's space and projection. And we're all slowly starting to want to talk about the body, right? What's happening with the face should naturally be what's happening, match what's happening with the body. So I'm going to be talking about dynamics and quality of movement. When I think of dynamics and quality of movement, I think of the use of different ranges of energy to perform a movement. And we can go ahead and go to that next slide. So I would like to have a little round table, like a little discussion with the group. So with that definition in mind, I've got it there for you, the use of different ranges of energy to perform a movement. I first would like to ask, when you think of dynamics in dance, what comes to your mind? And I can kind of get.
Oh,
go ahead.
Go ahead,
Sydney.
I just think about textures a little bit. So again, thinking about as dynamics shift in music, how that affects the way that our movement is. So are things more staccato? Are things, should they be smoothed out? Am I creating longer lines? Am I doing shorter, more abrupt movements or actions?
Mm-hmm. And then Holly, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was going to go along the same lines as what Sydney just said, just to how the movement can match the music or blend with the music, but also enhance the performance as well, utilizing the same techniques that Sydney was just talking about.
Yes. And what I have is, throughout a piece, there's such a wide range of levels of dance. You've got those hard hitting moments, those soft moments, those fast, those slow, those sudden, those sustained. There's so much that wide range of levels in dance, just like within the music, it changes. You want to make sure that the dynamics and the energy and that quality of movement is also changing. And again, that face is matching what's happening with your body. For the second question, why is the use of dynamics important to the overall quality of the performance? This is something we talk about with our team a lot, and I definitely want to hear from you guys as well. It's just like when you're having a conversation with someone and they're just talking monotone, you're going to lose interest real fast. And so it's like that with dance. You want to make sure you're keeping the attention, the interest from the judges, from the audience. And so again, just ways of keeping that interest is changing your dynamics, your emotion with your face, but also with your body. And it's connecting to what's happening and the changes in the music and the choreography. So just making sure all those things are working together. But if anyone wants to add anything to that. So again, why is the use of dynamics important to the overall quality of the performance?
I'll chime in. I think kind of going back to what Jesus said at the beginning, at the end of a routine, there's an emotion that the audience needs to feel, whether it's like the highest of highs or the lowest of lows, like just utilizing different textures and hopefully seeing the performers live out those textures just helps more so emphasize the emotions from the musical piece, whether it is like a hard-hitting hip hop or a really emotional lyrical.
Great. Thank you, Miranda. Is there anything anyone else would like to add? Okay. Awesome. So our third question here is, why is the use of dynamics important to each dancer as a whole unit?
I can jump in for that because one of the things that you want, and you've already addressed it so much, and like I said, this is very much a part of the entire thought of performance achievement, but you don't, for a person who can't sing worth a bit, you know, I understand that you have to blend, you have to harmonize, and your dancers have to make sure they're all harmonizing. The performance has to have a way for us to digest it. And if we have one dancer who's over there rocking it with super, you know, jumpy movement, she's using all the hard dynamics while everyone else is doing something sustained, it can either create an important contrast or it can blow it. And so when we think about all the other things that go into this, energy, facial expressions, those types of things, how they blend, when you think about how it's important to each dancer, they're telling a story as a whole. They're communicating an idea as a whole. So when we let all the dancers understand the range of emotions and the storyline of what you're presenting, I think that's where you get that final performance achievement as a whole, is when everyone is basically singing in harmony, performing in harmony. So that's kind of my analogy.
Yes, that's perfect, Angela. Anything else anybody wants to add?
Yes, I think that it's very important because it creates more of a big picture, kind of like what everyone's saying, but it's a big picture view instead of like looking at the small details. It allows for the judges and everyone who's watching to actually see what the dance is trying to portray and what the topic of the dance is.
I know I'm a big polisher. I like just all the dancers looking as one with, you know, their body angles, their placement, their pathways, all the things. But dancing, you know, as one unit emotionally with the same energy and intent behind their movement, then the overall performance quality can just go to a whole other level. And whenever it's all working together, the picture just makes sense, you know. So we thank you guys. If there's anything anyone wants to add, we're going to go ahead and show a video of a great example of a great use of dynamics and quality of movement. I hate that we're having tech issues, but this is the team out of Utah, Bingham Minorettes, and this is their hip hop. And I know you really can't see their facial expressions, but again, we're really just focusing on the dynamics and quality of movement. I mean, even without the music, you can see it. It's clear, the picture for it. And we can probably, I think we're good. Thank you, Allie.
That was such a great example, Samandra, because you could really tell when it was groove, when it was percussive. You know, you really understood the story, and that's truly what a performance is. It's a story. So it's lovely to go on that journey with them and experience that.
Mm-hmm. And every single girl out there, you're looking at the back row corner, and they're all telling the story so clear. It's like every director's dream, right? So, and then the judges can just enjoy the ride, you know. So it's so nice to. Fulfilling, you know, so it gives you that feeling, right, that we all want when it comes to the performance quality. So what I would say, you know, after watching that would just, I would give it distinguished, outstanding job in dynamics and overall movement quality as a unit. Your energy was clearly executed and matched the musicality perfectly. Now, if you're watching a team that is more on the proficient side, or they're just needing areas of improvement. As a director, I want to hear, we already kind of talked about it with Holly and Sydney, like you want to hear the good things that we're doing, and then like, how can we get better, right? So just some sentence stems here for you. Your performance showcased a solid understanding of dynamics and movement quality. To elevate your expression, consider varying your energy levels more intentionally throughout the piece, right? That's something that they can work on. Or another sentence stem example here, the energy and movements were generally clear and controlled. To enhance your performance, focus on refining transitions between movements and verifying your energy levels to add more expressiveness and depth. So just some examples there for you guys. And just, I wanted to go back to just discuss the overall importance of connecting to the music. Sorry, you can go back, Holly. Sorry, the slide after the video. Yeah, so just I have it there, the overall connection to the music, just the importance there. Each musical accent should be reflected in the choreography. And additionally, to achieve a high level of performance, dancers' facial expressions must correspond to these musical moments, aligning with the overall quality and energy of the movements. So just wanted to discuss that. And if there's anything anyone wants to add, as directors or, you know, judges, what you're looking for, and then dynamics and quality of movement.
Not necessarily adding to that, but I was just going to say for our people following along at home, I would write down these example sentences and then also maybe take a little bit of time and create sentences for each of the levels of the indicators. So it could be a good exercise. And if you kind of take the time to write them out, then when you're in that moment with that talk tape recorder in your hand, the thoughts will flow easier. So I'm a write it, memorize it kind of person. So I like to write those things out, and then the words just kind of come easier to me in the moment when I'm judging.
Mm-hmm. And this is going to be a shameless plug. We have a sentence stems page that you can go and add some things. You can put some questions in, some things to say and not say, and then some examples. So great discussion so far. Thank you so much, Samandra, Allie, everybody.
You ready?
Yes, we're good to go to the next one. I'm wrapping up. So again, just going back to the, just making sure you familiarize yourself with the adjudication descriptors here. And then we've already touched on it, but just as directors, we just want to make sure that the score matches, you know, what was being said in those talk tapes. Again, it helps us as coaches to go back to our kids to communicate to them, okay, we did this great, but this is what they're wanting from us to improve for the next go round, right? So, you know, I'm going to transition to Ebony. With amazing projection and dynamics, you definitely have to have endurance. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, Samandra. Hi, everyone. I'm Ebony, and I'll be talking about a performance quality piece that is really affected by how the judges and the audience can see it, and that's endurance. And so, like Samandra said, all of this is coming together to create this piece. And we have to be able to do it well. And in order to do it well, it's through endurance. So I want y'all to take a moment just to reflect quietly. What do you think about when you hear the word endurance in dance? So that might be pushing through when your legs might be tired. It might be giving facials because facials are a part of that endurance piece when you're out of breath. Maybe it's the intentional use of your breath control. So you can see that the dancers are actively engaged in their breathing and they're starting and restarting throughout that routine. Okay. So endurance is about maintaining consistent energy and effort from the first count to the last. So I'll go through 2 indicators that basically break down what endurance should look like in your routines. The first indicator is the ability to maintain that energy and effort. So when you're watching a performance as a adjudicator or judge, pay attention to how the energy feels from beginning to end. Are they still dancing full out in the final formation? Can you tell that they are giving their all, or are they starting to fade? Are there transitions as they're moving from one to the next transition? Are their facials still alive near the end? I think that as educators, especially with experience, you can tell a team that is really trained in that endurance. You can tell who has practiced running the routine over and over, breaking it up into parts, and you can tell that a team that is trained for endurance, they're not just going to start strong, they're going to continue all the way through. So that next indicator is the physical stamina. And this is where we go a little bit deeper. So we're not just talking about high energy all the time. We're also talking about their quality of movement, their quality of their endurance all the way through. So as an adjudicator, you can look and see and you can ask, are they still hitting those clean lines? Are they maintaining their core and their upper body? Are their arm placements still detailed and strong from start to finish, even if they're tired? This type of stamina, it takes conditioning. It takes where the dancers or the team is working through that breath control and you're teaching the dancers how to do that. It's not something that they can just all of a sudden get on the floor and they do it. It's something that you can consistently see. So one thing to look for, or some things to look for if you can tell that a team has great endurance, is if they start to rush while they're dancing. You can tell that that means that they might not be all the way engaged, or maybe they're lagging behind. You can also tell that their body is starting to slump. Their posture is not as engaged as before. When your endurance is strong, you will see that technical accuracy. So you'll see those clean lines. You'll see the lifted carriage all the way from start to finish. So it's essentially what all of the ladies have been saying. We're just now putting it together. Are you doing all of those things just throughout the entire routine? So now I'll just give you some examples, and then I'd love to hear from the committee if you have some other ones. Here are some things that you can say if you're looking at your dancers. Remember to control your breathing to help maintain your energy to prevent fatigue throughout the routine. So something that I have been using with my dancers throughout this season is really teaching them the understanding of starting and restarting with your breath. You have to think about your body being an engine and you're starting and restarting every single time. Otherwise, you'll fade. So that's something that I think is really important. Another example could be your movements are sharp at the beginning, but they are not as strong and defined as you get tired. So be sure to keep your form consistent from start to finish. I won't read the other ones because I'd like to hear what you all have, because I'm sure you all have some examples. What are some other things that you might use with your dancers to really hone in on endurance?
I'll chime in, Ebony. Something I like to tell my dancers, whether it's like dance class or dance team, is I ask them, what kind of punctuation mark do you want at the end of your performance? Are we going to get a ... Are we going to get a question mark? Are we going to get an exclamation point? Are we going to get a period? And I think that just helps them like conceptualize like the endurance ability. Like I've got to start with a capital letter at the very beginning and I need to end with a very strong punctuation mark.
Okay. That's really good.
I'd say, as a director, working with my students. Once we get to a certain point, we don't always start out this way, but once we get to a certain point in preparing for a performance or just training endurance in general, we do run the routine at least twice in a row. We'll run the whole thing full out, I always say best of your ability, everyone, 100% participation. And then we'll take a quick little break, really quick, and get right back at it. Beginning formation, here we go. You got it. Best of your ability, push, push, push. And we train in that way. And again, it's at a certain point, like some of the things of rehearsing and preparing have already been completed at that point. And then we get to a point where the sole purpose of doing that is building our endurance. So as a team, we are working towards the all dancers for the duration of the time with the full endurance with that in mind. So as a director, that's something that we do in rehearsal to prepare.
Absolutely.
Yes. And we do the same thing, Holly. We call them stamina checks, just do it to the best of your ability once we get to that point where we can. And then also, like, we want to end stronger than we started. So if you're going to start here, you got to go even here. Yeah, you never want to end lower than you started. So.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. So just to wrap up before I hand it over to Allie. So endurance is not just about going hard. It's about holding both that effort and your execution steady from beginning to end. And not just thinking about the body. We also have to think about breath has to be endured as well. Facials have to be endured as well. So it's all coming together to make it all happen. All right, Allie, it's all yours.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about production elements. So this is where it feels like I'm talking about like 4 more or 5 more additional captions, but they all fall within this one. And I'm going to try to go through them fairly quickly. So first we have the use of costuming and props. It's our first indicator under the production elements. So the costuming and use of manipulatives significantly contribute exceptionally to the overall effectiveness of the presentation. So what they're wearing or holding or using is adding to the performance, not taking away. And you want to be careful that you're not commenting in a way that's out of their control. So we want to remember the dancers are told what to wear 9 times out of 10. And a lot of times as well within restraints of budget and what we have in our inventory and this, that, and the other. So we may not want to say something like, oh, y'all should add a hat to your field uniform, and it's a team that's never worn it. They don't have it, whatever. But if they're wearing hats, you can certainly talk about how it impacts the overall visuals of the heads and this and that. Also, you can definitely talk about how the venue pertains to the costuming. So, if they are dancing on green turf, whether it's a tan jashu or a white boot, that's going to add to visuals in terms of clarifications of footwork and things like that. So you can kind of talk about how it is contributing or adding. When we're talking about the props, I love the word manipulative because that's what I want to see. I want to see the dancers manipulating it. So if you just came and put something on the field and danced around it, but you could have done the dance without that thing, then I don't know if it really enhanced it. But are you manipulating the prop? Are you using it? Is it an active part of your dance that dance would not be the same without it? Then yes, awesome. So again, we don't necessarily want to say, oh, I think this jazz should have been a streamer and like tell them to add a manipulative that doesn't exist, but make sure that you're commenting on like, oh, great use of the streamer. This part was really visually pleasing, blah, blah, blah. Or maybe if you're taking points off, you're saying, I felt like the streamers weren't really efficient. We didn't utilize it enough, blah, blah, blah. Or maybe it's their execution. Y'all were dancing really soft, so the streamer didn't have the effect it could have had with like more power and strength behind your movement. Okay. The next element within this caption is just the overall presentation design. So yes, we talked about formations within choreography, but we're still looking at how it pertains to the whole package. So the choreography and the formations are thoughtfully crafted to suit the music genre, venue, etc. So if you are in a giant football arena and they never go past the 45 to 45 yard line, was that effective for that venue? I don't know. You could talk about it and use those sentence stems to give them suggestions on ways to better use the venue. And then next we have just the visual interest. And I know for our recording, my little faces are covering up some of these words. Scoot them over. Oops. The overall visual interest. So I'm just pressing all the buttons, but Mary gave the disclaimer at the beginning. So we're good. There we are. Okay, the elements are integrated and exceptionally executed to contribute to the visual interest for the event venue specific presentation. So again, just does it all come together? Does it all make sense? Like for the venue we have, did we pick music and a style of dance and a costume and all the package that it all just kind of clicks in together? Or did we like pick our favorite of everything like this and none of it makes sense together? And explaining to them why or what element you might change to improve it if you were to take points off. So last but certainly not least, what I think is most important is the ensemble effort. So you've heard us talk about like, is it everyone the whole time? And the ensemble effort, is it everyone? All dancers are contributing to the collective vision and intent of the performance. And I think that that can go in so many different ways. So is every dancer giving her all with facials? Is every dancer having the body language and the dynamics that we talked about? Is every dancer actively a piece of the program? Or did you take your top 10 faves and they're dancing really hard and then these other girls are just step touching with their streamers? Maybe you didn't utilize all dancers to contribute to the piece. So just looking at the everyone. So again, all of these different elements, the ensemble effort, the visual interest, the presentation design, and the costuming and props, all together are your 1/5 of the integration utilization of production elements. So you don't necessarily want to get hung up on any of these one things as that overall caption, but you want to think about why you're taking points off or what they're doing great and make sure you're commenting. So if your reason for taking points off in that caption had more to do with their movement dynamics, then talk about that. But if you're taking points off because of the use of the manipulative or something, then make sure that you're fully hitting on that. And we can talk about more of that in the wrap up, but this is kind of the catch-all within the catch-all category. And with all that fast talking, I'm going to give it over to Lauren and Abby to start our little wrap up discussion.
Hi, we are Lauren Buteau, and this is Abby Poirier, and we are at Taylor High School in Katy. I have gone through the judges training last summer, and then I also have participated as a director. So Mary was super sweet and looped us in to kind of kick off the discussion with thinking about a performance that was really memorable to us because of their performance achievement. And just being completely open about the direction of our team. We're looking to go to kind of a more national competition. And so we've really been diving deep into the game day and the pom styles. And I think when most of us close our eyes and we think of that memorable performance, it's probably an ooey gooey contemporary that made us really feel deep in our hearts. But as judges, we also really need to be able to reward those precision styles. So I just wanted to kind of talk about what I saw in those game days and pom routines that I really enjoyed and I thought was strong. And that was executing genuine cheer and really infectious energy, as well as like that stamina, because remembering that those game day routines are longer, which is more challenging for, we all have, I call her Sally because we're the Mustangs. So it's Mustang Sally for us. We all have our little Sally in the back who is, doing her all and giving her all. And that's a longer routine. So really just like rewarding the effort of what is required for them. And then also really watching how they can maintain sharpness and spirit and crowd engagement. Those are going to be good indicators for a high performance achievement in those categories, because that also goes into how prepared they are and their passion, which I think at our core is what dance is all about. So that's kind of what I was thinking of just with what I've been watching recently.
And hi, I'm Abby. I just thought about the importance of portraying and watching as judges, looking for genuine emotion and expressive facials that reflect the heart of the choreography, not just facials that we throw out there just to get the point, or just looking for facials that check a box, but one that actually matches the whole all-encompassing routine. So while evaluating, we must also show grace and understanding, of course, because these are teenagers still figuring out how to connect deeply with their own emotions and show this with their face. So that was something I also was thinking about, just showing a grace and an understanding for them while judging. And on top of that, authentic breath, I think, ties into a genuine emotion. So not just always choreographing a breath just to have a breath, but does it match the movement? Does it match the choreography? And I think that that's a good thing to look for in performance as well as a judge. And yeah, just understanding that we're not just judging like the black and white definition of a performance, but we're watching young dancers grow and learn to express and show artistry while also athleticism.
And we talked a lot too, just kind of we're lucky we're doing this together. So we've been able to kind of spar and trade comments, but we've talked a lot about that authenticity and how it should be an emotion or like a facial or an expression that is real to that dancer, just that performance version of it, kind of to lay it all home for us. So we're going to pass it to our friend Miranda so she can add as well.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ladies. Something that I just want to chime in and say is, I love this caption because I'm such like a big picture kind of like visionary type person. So I really see things from like all angles, and everything that has been talked about today has been like so rich, full of really great examples, really great discussion. And when I think of performance achievement caption, it is, you are really looking at like what is being achieved in this 2 minutes that you have on the floor. Or what is being 3 minutes with a prop, without a prop. And I think it is really, it's the endurance, it's the dynamics, it's the facial expressions, all create really unique visuals. And even though we've had some technology issues, my favorite thing to do is to watch dances without sound, because that's when the visuals come alive. And that's also when you can see how the formations are or how the cleans are. And so it was just nice to see a lot of these really great examples executed without sound, just because we can like pinpoint and just really see like what every dancer having the same intent? Are they executing it at the same time as well? And to me, that just helps create that lasting visual and like that lasting feeling that you want for audiences and judges and whatever type of venue the performance is being held.
That's great. Thank you, Miranda. Go, Allie.
I was just going to say one last thing is, those of us that are directors, we felt it and been there and we've heard it, but saying like, well, they said that they had great energy and then they gave me an 8 out of 10 and they're frustrated, or a 7 out of 10. So just really making sure that with a caption that is so all-inclusive, that if you're in your head taking points off for a specific reason or purpose, that as an adjudicator, you're very articulate with that. So you can say, y'all have great energy and faces, but in this last caption, I'm really looking at blah, and talk about their endurance or their whatever, so that you're making sure you're giving them the why as to losing those points.
Fabulous. Yes, go. Somebody else had something they wanted to say. Well, I'm going to step in right now, and I know we're up against a time block, but I do want to, Holly, I am going to toss this to you. We had a discussion question, but I feel like we've tossed a lot. I'd love for you to give that example of volume very quickly before we go.
Sure. So one thing that I do with my students, and I use this term when I'm judging as well, I tell them, right now I feel like you're at a level in terms of their projection and in terms of this caption. Right now I feel like you're at a level 7 to 8 for me on the volume dial, and some of us are at like 9, 10, but as a whole we're at like 7, 8, and I want everyone to turn that up to a 10, and I want you to finish at 11. And so to give them that kind of just picture and give them that idea, I think that's been really helpful for our students, for them to be able to put action behind what I'm asking them to do. I think in this caption for the students, sometimes that's really difficult for them. You know, we're like, more, give me more, bigger face. And they're like, I'm doing everything I've got, you know? And so to be able to give them like a gauge, either a percentage gauge or a volume dial, or, and it always helps to watch, like record it, watch film, watch it back. And you can say like, see, look how strong, utilize that with those same like words and terminology. And then also always always talking about all of us. It has to be 100% full participation from every dancer on the floor, from every team member. Right now, we're like 80% there. We're getting there. You're doing great. Let's keep pushing. Let's keep everyone contribute, you know? And so that's been helpful for us. I've started using those words the last couple of years, and I've seen a lot of growth in this caption specifically for our students. And I don't know if it's solely because of the terminology, but for me as a director, it also gives them, again, a way to give it an action, to give what I'm asking them to do and how I'm trying to train them and coach them. It gives them like an actionable response, which I think is helpful for them.
Final thoughts. I want to make sure everyone is good.
I just want to make one comment. I haven't said much. I'm taking lots of notes here, but I just want to say that this was probably one of the hardest categories for my group as a director, and it was the hardest thing to teach. And for those groups that are maybe not as strong in this, the ideas that you've given of things that you do, Holly, and I wish I had had some of those things in my back pocket when I was a director, because this was the hardest caption for us, and it didn't matter what we did. And I think we ended up watching a lot of other groups from around the country just so they could see this is what's so real, or even just referring to, and I hate to say it, but the college videos, because that's showing them real performances where it is so cutting edge. And I feel like some of the groups that are not as strong need to hear some of these things, because they need to know that even some of the premier groups out there are still challenged with the same thing. So thank you for sharing all the great ideas. All of you are great presenters, and it's just an honor to just be sitting here listening to all of this.
So while we were not perfect, we gave a lot of tips and tricks. I'm very proud of all of you for powering through our technological issues. Next steps, you completed the whole score sheet, everyone. Next steps, scoring webinar. It will be a lot shorter scoring exercise. Thanks again, and we look forward to seeing you. We have some live rehearsals throughout the state, Houston, Dallas, Austin. So we'll be looking forward to pairing you with a mentor and a rookie judge, and we can practice doing this live. So see you then.